Ag AgrAbility clients are doing out there to find unique and I would say in many cases unusual, somewhat unusual ways to generate income on their farm. Real quick definition, what's an alternative enterprise? We use a very broad definition. Basically anything, any type of agriculturally or food-based income producing enterprise that's not mainstream day-to-day commodity production, if you will. Here in Indiana, that'd be corn and soybeans. Other areas that might vary. It might be wheat and cattle in Kansas, or take your pick, but something that's just a little outside the mainstream of what most people would think of as quote unquote traditional agriculture. Value added, throw that in, that's taking some type of a product and adding value to it, whether it's packaging, processing, making it into something more valuable and passing that on and selling that to the consumer. Might be a service that's offered that complements or supplements a traditional, quote unquote, traditional operation. Typically looking at niche or specialty markets, although sometimes, and I think those specialty markets are definitely expanding in a lot of cases. This isn't new. Farmers of all types have pursued niche enterprises for many years. A long time ago, I was lucky enough to do a master's project on alternative enterprises for farmers and ranchers with disabilities. Even got to visit some strawberry farmer over in Hagerstown, Indiana. He probably doesn't remember, but I do. It has been a day or two. And at that point, we found a significant portion of farmers with disabilities pursue some type of an alternative, or what we would have considered an alternative enterprise. I think if anything, and this is totally anecdotal, that if anything, that number's increased over the years. We all know in the last 10 or 15 years, the growth of the programs or the local food movement, urban agriculture has just exploded. And so have the support mechanisms through programs like AgrAbility and Extension and so on. So I don't think we have a specific number we could tack on it now, but I'm certain that percentage has increased. Emily introduced our 4 speakers. Most of this program, I'm going to shut up, and most of this program is these folks telling their unique stories. And we basically have 3 questions or so that I'd like them to talk through, and they'll pass from one speaker to another. If you have questions, pop them in the chat box, or I think you can raise your hand or whatever. We'll watch for that, and we'll try to take those as they come when it fits in the conversation. But we'll start out. I think Gabriel has volunteered to be our first speaker. And our first question, basically, tell us of what you do. Tell us about your enterprise, how you do what you do, and why you started it. If there was any special circumstances, such as a disability or special circumstance that impacted, good or bad, that may have impacted why you started that particular operation or enterprise, tell us about that. Just, I said, tell your story. Gabriel, you back on yet?
Yeah, I'm on. Can you guys hear me okay?
We got you.
All right, great. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for the National AgrAbility Project for allowing me to come on and share my story. And wanted to say thanks to the Life Project as well for incorporating me into their 2501C grant that they got from USDA. So I'm very, very fortunate and thankful for being on board. So a little bit about my story. I've been in IT for probably 20 plus years, and I was working with IBM, and they opted to do a lot of layoffs. And I had been grown pretty tired of the IT world at that point anyways. And I had researched aquaponics a few years earlier, and I decided to take the layoff and the severance package that they were offering and embark on the aquaponics journey. I started out really small because I didn't know what I was doing at first. I think most beginning farmers are probably like me. And especially in the aquaponics space, there's really just not a lot of documentation on how to do stuff, especially when I started out in 2007. So I just researched a lot and experimented a lot. So currently right now, I'm actually working on building a commercial aquaponics space, and I'm actually in it right now. And the premise for me at this point is to be as sustainable and carbon neutral as possible. So I'm building this system around sustainability and being able to grow vertically and use alternative power to run the whole system. So I don't know if you can see behind me, I have a solar generator behind me that's running off some solar panels, and I'll just show you real quick. On top of the shipping container, I have some panels. I don't know if you can see those, but that's running my whole system right now. And there's my tanks inside my container. So I really wanted this to be modular so that I could increase the size of my farm when the funds became available, and basically, as I was introduced, would like to incorporate these in every city nationwide and eventually globally. So that's basically the start of my story. I'll shift it over to Chef Joseph.
Chef Joseph, you need to unmute.
So I was just so listening to Gabriel's story there. Okay, thanks for having us on board, and and thanks for incorporating us in which the program here. My name is Darrell Anderson, the CEO of the Chef Joseph's original Chicago style kick sauce story. Started out in a small town in Bedford, Virginia, which I'm from Lynchburg, but I'm from Bedford, and I had a barbershop and a medical transport business, and I knew there was something bigger for me, but I just didn't know what to do, what it was. And so one day I was on my motorcycle riding, and the church was having a fish fry. And I said, hey man, stop by to get a fish sandwich. And I said, y'all got any hot sauce? And this tall guy walked up to me. He said, no, you don't want no hot sauce. I said, yes, I do. I like some hot sauce. He said, well, nice to meet you. He said, I make hot sauce. My name is Joseph. I said, oh, really? Okay, cool. So I said, here's my business card. I'm an entrepreneur. So, if you want to do something with it, maybe we'll sit down and talk, And basically about 10 months later, he called me on the phone. He was saying, hey, look, I feel, like I want to talk to you about this, so he invited me over for dinner, showed me the sauce that he was making, which was really, really good. And so we basically went into a partnership deal. And what happened was when he started seeing the work that was involved with the development, just the FDA, everything you have to do to take it to become market ready, he decided he didn't want to go any further. So at that point, he sold me the other half of the business. So at that point, I reformulated the recipe and basically bought him out. And from Roanoke, Virginia, if you all have been there, it was a very, very beautiful place. And the mountains, trees, hiking, and all that. But I just knew that I had to take this product near some type of water. So hot sauce, seafood, hot sauce, the ocean, go to Virginia Beach. This is where the ocean is, and basically, as it came to me in my prayer time, it was like, if you stay in that area with this product, you're only going to have creeks, rivers, streams, and ponds, which means no matter how many times of the days of the week you're going to go to fishing, this is what you're going to catch. Are you content with that? Hot sauce, seafood, hot sauce. Go to the ocean and look at the many, many different species of fish. So I literally moved to Virginia Beach homeless, probably at least 14, 15 years ago. Moved into a homeless shelter, had six hot sauce bottles in my trunk, and basically start, getting jobs, temporary jobs, this, that, and the other. And I was homeless for a total period of about maybe 3 years, sleeping in my van, sleeping by the ocean, but I still held on to my dream. And then, so as I started pushing the product, I started getting into markets. Then I found a commercial kitchen, and then the numbers started coming in a little bit, and things just lifted up off the ground. So I was able to pull myself out of homelessness and then employ other people. And so with that product, this is actually the Chef Joseph's Kick Sauce. We make this locally in Virginia Beach. And we have seasonings as well. And then we have ginger drinks with alkaline water. And this is where we get into the value added product. And so really, so what happened was people would try my product and they would like, and they would hear the story. They were like, wow, you know, so many people were coming to me and they were like, how did you do this? Because I know I can make a pie, I can do this, I can do that. So the stories just came so great to the point, it was like, maybe the universe is trying to tell me something. So that's when I released the Chef Joseph's Entrepreneur's Market Ready Guide. And this is the step-by-step guide that I put together to teach people the step-by-step process on how to develop your product from beginning to scratch to end, basically. And from there, I spun into the products, and then I got into the hot sauce clutch bags. You can actually carry the hot sauce in these clutch bags as well. And this idea came from a gentleman whose son works for Jay-Z, actually. I won't get into names and everything, but I was swimming laps in the pool one day and I met this gentleman and he was like, hey, you know, I know this circle and, you know, and so by that time it was just like hot sauce clutch bags. I put this together. And so from there, we spun into recipe development because I felt like my story and coming in for a land and coming into a close with respect of everyone else. So what happened was so many people needed help. So many people couldn't find jobs, including myself. I was fired from 11 jobs, actually, just because I was a good employee. So it just came to me. If you can't find a job, create one. And that's exactly what I did. So from there, we moved into food trucks. And now I employ people from the same homeless shelters that I actually once frequented at that time. So thank you for your time. And I'm glad to be here.
That's an amazing story, Darrell. I'm going to actually, we got one quick question. It's going to jump back to Gabriel, I think. And it's more or less along the lines of, has anyone had an issue with their county refusing to tax the farm with the ag rate, but instead a tax at a higher commercial rate, citing that aquaponics is not agriculture because it is not grown in the dirt?
I'm not sure if I can answer that because I haven't come across that issue here in my state. I'm sure it's probably, it could be an issue from state to state or locality to locality with regards to how each entity views aquaponics. So I think actually that's a good question because aquaponics is viewed differently by different folks. And I think you really have to get involved at the local level, state level, and tell them about what you're doing and why aquaponics is just as valuable as a farming method as growing in the dirt or hydroponics. I mean, if you think about it, a lot of items are grown hydroponically. Most of us don't know that, but aquaponics is just another iteration of hydroponics, just using fish. So if someone is having trouble with that, I would definitely look at hydroponics as the standard and rebuttal any objection from the state or the locality with regards to taxing, and use hydroponics as their go-to as far as the rules and regulations and laws.
Thank you, Gabriel. All right, Ed, I think you can go ahead and answer that first question then.
Up for me?
Yep, all yours.
Okay, I'm Ed Bell and live in East Central Indiana, a little farm with 72 acres. My parents moved here when I was 7. I just turned 60, so I've been here a long time. My wife and I purchased the farm in 85 or 87. It was a traditional grain and livestock. We raised hogs in the 70s. I attended a Purdue short course, and the economics teacher, Craig Dobson, he said, the future agriculture is going to be get big and make it on volume, or there might be a small niche where you could be small but you're going to have to be really good at being small. And I thought, wow, with 72 acres, I'm already small. I just have to learn to be good at it. So I spent the last decades since 1980, the short course at 1980 to present, and continuing every year trying to learn to be better at being small. So started with green beans and sweet corn, and in those days we didn't have an Amish community, and that did well. I always had a desire to go retail rather than through the middleman taking a cut out of all my labor. We live on a state highway, so with a retail business, the 3 rules are location, location, location. So I'm on our state highway in between 2 county seats, and retail agriculture was my my goal, and I like working directly with the consumers. In 95, we started raising our first strawberry crop, primarily because well, we had some Amish moving in, and I have a disability. I might back up the truck and talk about that a little bit. In 82, my farm plan was interrupted by a violent crime attack. I was shot in the neck and paralyzed at about my armpits down. It took me a few years to revamp the farm and stay on top of my head game and all that. But farming seemed to be the direction to keep going. Cultivate the soil and cultivate people when I have an opportunity, kind of my life's mission. But planted our first strawberries in 85 because nobody was growing strawberries in my area, and I figured I could at least win by default. So didn't have to compete with anybody who could walk or had 12 kids. So we didn't really know anything about strawberries other than how to eat them. Over the years, we continually improved. Up to, in essence of time, up to today, we have 12 acres of strawberries. About half are picked by our customers and half are picked by employees. We just finished our strawberry harvest, so I really should be in the field killing weeds, but everything I do right now determines next year's crop. But we had a really good season here. We also have about an acre of asparagus. And then we got into Dobermans. When you survive a violent crime attack, it changes your worldview. And we wanted a big scary dog and not know anything about Dobermans. We got a rescued Doberman, and fell in love with them, started raising puppies, and now we have about 5 litters or so a year. And we're sell them directly to customers, and all of our marketing, strawberries, puppies, everything is done through social media. So we spend a lot of time. My wife and I like to say that, cultivating the soil is just part of it. We really spend a lot of time cultivating people. So the puppies has been good. Rather than raising more and more puppies, we try to raise quality puppies at a little higher price. And that's been very successful for us. My wife also does some value added. I'll talk about a little later if you want. We're strawberry jams and baked goods and so on. So that's who I am. That's where I'm at.
Sarah, take it away.
Perfect. My name is Sarah Creech. I run Blue Yonder Organic Farm over in North Salem. And like a few, I totally new to agriculture. I didn't grow up near farms or anything like that, and didn't really learn about farming, about food until after I had gotten out of the military, and my husband had gotten sick, and we started learning about how important food is and nutrition, and just really enjoyed the farmers that we were talking to at the different markets and the land, and just thought about doing that once my husband was retired. He only had a few years left. And then obviously my kind of changed when he passed away from colon cancer. And here I was 32 years old. I had been medically discharged from the military. I had just finally gotten into nursing. Things were going good. And after everything happened, I couldn't go in the hospital anymore. I couldn't really work those 9-to-5 jobs. I had a lot of anxiety and panic attacks, which if you've ever gone through a true panic attack is just completely debilitating. And it's hard to work a job that way and do stuff outside. So after my husband died, I kind of sat back and kind of rethought what I was going to do with my life. And I just wanted to move away from everything and get away from everybody. And so my sister and her family were living in Indiana, and I purchased a farm online, and then moved out to Indiana, not really with a plan on what was going to happen. And then over the next two, I learned as much as I could about how to farm and how to do agriculture. Obviously on a small scale. I have 43 acres, so not a huge plot. And I'm one person, so it's very difficult to do too much. Couldn't do a big strawberry farm like Ed. But over the next almost decade, I mean, I've almost been here 10 years now. And I fell in love with farming. I went to some fantastic programs for veterans in agriculture, programs through AgrAbility, and then through some small farm programs, and got plugged into this amazing community and learned how to farm, learned how to grow all kinds of things, and really found a passion and direction through that. So right now I raise livestock. So I have cows, lamb, chicken, turkeys, ducks, and then raise about 1.5 acres of produce. And then also honey, maple syrup, and shiitake mushroom production in our woods. So a lot of diversity, which is really cool, but it is a lot of work and a lot more complicated to run that type of business and that type of marketing. So those are some of the challenges I'll talk about. But at the same time, I do want to tell people, like, agriculture and farming has changed my life. It truly has pulled me out of some dark times and really made me connected again to nature, connected to people outside of my house. And it's been amazing. And I thank you all for being part of that community. So.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. What incredible stories. Thank all of you. Kind of that'll lead us into our next question. And I appreciate y'all sharing your challenges that you've experienced. And I guess this next question basically follows along that same line, because we want to end up on the positive and on the rewards on the last question. But and obviously you've all experienced challenges in life that brought you into what you're doing now. Maybe looking more specifically at the actual enterprises or your operations. What's the most challenging thing you ran across about pursuing some type of a, we'll call it alternative enterprise, a little outside the mainstream, or maybe run against the current a little bit? And what would you, what caution would you tell somebody else that may be considering jumping into some type of an enterprise or value added operation? So I think we're back to Gabriel, if you don't mind take a shot at it, Gabriel.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. I think it definitely needs to be discussed and shared. So for my unique situation in the aquaponics space, there's a lot of challenges because, as I mentioned earlier, different cities and localities and laws don't have aquaponics on the books. So when I try to get permitting here in Atlanta, it was a challenge beyond a challenge, because most of the folks in those offices don't know what aquaponics is, and having to explain that it's a form of farming still doesn't always come across in the proper way. And then they categorize it as a land farm, and it may not be a land farm. For example, my shipping container isn't really a typical farm. So getting permits for the building, permitting for what I'm doing, growing indoors. It's been a challenge. It continues to be a challenge for me as well. I'm just trying to get water here at my location. It's considered it's considered a commercial location. And so everything is commercial when it comes to this setup, even though I'm just using a 40-foot by 8-foot container. But everything applies from a commercial standpoint. So even though I'm on a small scale, everything that I try to incorporate as far as from a permitting standpoint, from a city standpoint, they look at it as a large commercial enterprise. So it's always been a challenge there. So infrastructure is definitely something that I would encourage folks to really do your research on, especially in the aquaponics space. Talk to your local folks and find out what they know about aquaponics. Educate them on aquaponics, and just show them what you do. The other aspect that's really challenging is, of course, money. I'm sure many of my colleagues on this call could probably agree with me that the financing piece is always tough. So if I went to a bank right now and asked for a loan and I'm doing aquaponics, I'm 99.9% sure I'm going to get turned down because they don't know, again, what aquaponics is. They don't see it as farming. So funding is always a challenge. And I've been just so blessed and honored to be a part of the LIFE project, where we got the 2501 grant that has really helped me propel my project forward. And so I would encourage those who are having trouble finding financing, look at grants. There's lots of grants out there. Just be persistent. And if you get turned down 5 or 6 times, there's eventually you're going to get an approval. So stick with it. Darrell.
Yeah. Okay, so the first thing that comes to my mind as far as stepping out there as an entrepreneur, the first thing that came to my mind was Napoleon Hill talking about the top 3 causes for failure. And I won't name all 3, but one of the main ones is lack of a definite aim. And that is so important. I meet so many entrepreneurs that, they say, okay, they're shooting all over the place. You know what I'm saying? And it reminds me of a movie, like you hear something in the bush, and then here they go with the machine gun, shooting around, you don't know what you're shooting at. And then you're out of bullets, and now you can't do anything. So lack of a definite aim. And 2 is, not be overcome or taken by fear. I moved from an area that, from Roanoke, Virginia to Virginia Beach. I did not know anyone here. I literally moved with a plan, and a lot of people don't have plans. That's the next thing. If you have a plan, you need a definite plan. Lack of a definite aim, you must have a plan, but the plan needs to make sense, because, you have a lot of people that want to do, entrepreneur endeavors, but yet, I just say aloof. That's kind of the word I use, is aloof. It's just in the air. Nothing wrong with it, but just understand, is it fiction or nonfiction? What type of plan is this? Because right now we need a nonfiction plan, so we can produce something. And I think one of the main challenges that I see is a lot of people, not all, but a lot of people I've seen that they're just stuck in fear. Well, what if I fail? What if I this? What if you don't? What I'm saying? There's an opposite side to that. What if you don't fail? What if you succeed? I was fired from 11 jobs, 11, not because I was a bad employee, not because I was late. It was simply because I was just, I didn't hang out with the guys. I didn't talk about sports. I didn't hang out smoking those cigarettes. I was just in this little corner trying to do what I'm supposed to do because I had a plan. So, but even then with those challenges, again, I couldn't find a job. I had to hire myself, and that's what happened. So overcome, conquer the fear, and basically, and have a definite plan, and you must believe in your plan as well and execute. That's the next thing, because it doesn't mean anything unless you execute. And thanks again, to the LIFE Project, for allowing us to be a part of the 2501 grant as well, dealing with the entrepreneurship piece of it. Thank you.
Go ahead, Ed.
Well, I would say, as far as barriers, or things that to get started, at least from my vantage point. One is you've got to have a market. If you want to, it doesn't matter what you want to raise. If you're in agriculture, you have to have a market. If you're in the Midwest with corn, well, there's markets everywhere. But, if you're selling truffles, no. If you could sell your whole farm in truffles, you'd be a very wealthy person, but you have to have the market. So you have to start with the market first, especially with a retail market where you're working directly with the customers. You have to build that over time. There's lots of different ways to do that. Definitely social media has expedited that for us, but trust is number one. When my wife and I first got married, she took on my last name, Bell. I was honored that she did that, but I told her, she was from Indianapolis. She was a city girl. And I told her, I said, a good family name takes decades or even generations to build in a community trust, but you can ruin it in 10 minutes. So be careful with the last name in a small town. I really don't want to move and start over it. So having trust with your customers and establishing a market, that's essential. Other things for me was labor. Labor in the early days was really hard. Finding people who were willing to do that stoop labor, that field labor. Very few people want to do that type of work. I've been down the road of migrant and seasonal workers and so on, and I have a little bit of experience there, and we had some good outcomes, some challenges. Today I'm in kind of a niche market with the Amish community. The Amish community has rapidly grown, and even though they're a competition to me in some respects of production, they are now really the asset because their teenagers are employed by me to pick my strawberries. So I've turned what could have been a liability into an asset, and that's primarily my labor force now is as a well-paid Amish teenagers to pick my strawberries. So always look for a different turn a liability into an asset. How can you do that? Labor, that was a big thing. And then lastly, for me, I don't know if this applies to everybody, but managing my disability. I can overdo it. I can get it. I've had secondary injuries that laid me up. But I guess it would apply to everybody. You have to be able to handle your own limitations. We all have physical and mental, emotional limitations, and you can't go beyond that. And an old adage that someone told me long ago was that you can't control, you have to manage. And that's been a good thing for me. I could go on, but there's 3 good ones.
Thanks, Ed. Sarah.
Yeah, I
Sarah?
totally agree with Ed. I'd say the main issue is marketing. One of the things you got to know, if you're doing something that's not mainstream, you have to educate your customers. So you're building that base, but while you're working with them personally, you're also teaching them about why they need your product, which is just business 101. But I think a lot of entrepreneurs and beginning farmers in alternative enterprises are starting, from the ground up and learning as they go, or having to do things not without the knowledge base and the resources that a lot of other people get the benefit of, including different educational programs, resources, grants. I know for me, I was one of the first organic farms in our area, probably one of the only, and there's good reason for that. We just don't have access to organic feeds. I know for my chicken feed, I have to go 4 hours away to get cost of feed. Crazy. So, all these things kind of add up. It is so much work. It's kind of when you're starting a new business, with any business really, when you're self-employed or a small group of employees, you are the go-to person for everything. And so I think it really takes a unique personality to be able to thrive and build a successful business. Um, Not that there's anything special about those who do entrepreneurship, but it's almost borderline crazy. Like you're crazy to do it because it's so much work. It like takes up your entire life. You have to be super flexible. Things are always changing. Um, you know, I heard someone speak one time and they talked about how um, when they were a rock climber and when they had to climb a rock as the first time that person has ever been up there, you know, it took months and months and months of work to prepare for that and to be successful at that. And then the next person that went up, you know, it took half as long to prepare. And then, you know, the people that came after that, you know, could do it in an afternoon. And it just goes to show, you know, you're trying to start something new and um, develop that new market, it's 100 times more difficult. So you really have to kind of be like a dog with a bone, focused, very laser focused. You need to have I think, a lot of assistance, whether that's from people in the business world, from other agricultural professionals, to places like AgrAbility. You need to build a community, and that takes time and that takes effort. But that will actually, I think, help to increase the odds of success for your business. So, I mean, I do think it's really important that people understand, like, it's crazy challenging to start a business. It is doable and there are amazing rewards, but you better be really committed because it's a lot of money, it's a lot of time, it's a lot of commitment. But I think it's great. So.
Okay.
Hey, Sarah, you
Awesome.
did have a quick question
Oh.
in the chat. It says, can you speak to the veteran programs you tapped into to help you learn how to farm a little bit, please?
Absolutely. Yeah. So the first program I went to was called Arm to Farm, and that's through NCAT and NCAT and ATRA. So NCAT is the national, oh crap. National
Center for Appropriate Technology, I think. Uh-oh.
Center. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, so that's the first program I went. I actually went to their first program back in, I think, 2013, but they have them around the US. It's totally free. They pay basically house you for a week. It's a hands-on training program. It's a combination of business and also agriculture. Kind of, it's a little, you know, it's not too deep just because it covers so many different types of agriculture. That is a huge start. And they can also give you other resources. And then another one is EBV, which is Entrepreneurship Boot Camp for Veterans. And that is agriculture specific, but that is specific for veteran entrepreneurs. And that is a in-depth online training and then a in-person training after that. And it is phenomenal. The resources that they give you both in training and then after training. And they actually have a grant program after that where you can get some financial assistance once your business plan is completed. And then we also on my farm do a veteran training program as well. So there's a lot of programs out there. Just Google that. The Farmer Veteran Coalition is a great resource. That's a national program, as well as there's a lot of state chapters, and they can get you connected with people that can help get that information to you.
I might add on that, our AgrAbility Veterans and Beginning Farmer resource page on our website we have we linked to a lot of the things that Sarah just talked about and a lot of the other programs out there. Probably not all of them, but we try to get as many of them as we can. So. Okay, with that kind of brings us to the circle of, I guess, back to Gabriel. Now we're back to okay, we've talked about the challenges and I guess less fun adventures. Let's flip it around. And, tell us what's been rewarding about pursuing your enterprise, your operation, and if you have a piece of advice for anybody looking to do something similar, whether it's exactly what you do or just anything outside the mainstream, throw that in as well. So, what are the rewards and any encouragement you might have for somebody looking to pursue some type of alternative enterprise?
Yeah, thanks. I would have to say following my passion is probably the most rewarding thing with regards to my project and what I'm doing. And I hear a lot of passion on this call. I think everybody here, all of our panelists, are passionate about what they do. And that's so encouraging to me and hopefully to others that are looking to embark on their own endeavor. I just love, in my instance, thinking outside the box, finding new ways to be successful. And since there really is no training booklet or guide to how to be successful in aquaponics, you're going to have to try and experiment and see what works for you and what doesn't work for you. What works for me here in Atlanta may not work for someone else who's up north in Canada. So be passionate about what you do and don't be afraid to experiment and try new things. So one of the areas that could have been a liability, as Ed had mentioned, and while he was talking about turning the Amish teenagers into an asset, is there's waste that comes out of an aquaponics system. So instead of throwing away the waste, why not reuse it either in a farming instance, like a land or soil instance as an amendment. That's one way to use it as a value added product. You can also sell that, or reuse the waste. So anything that I may not sell from a produce standpoint, I can create a biodigester and use that to create energy for my system. So just being able to think outside the box like that and find ways to be successful. I just love that about being small scale, but also unique in the fact that, there is no how-to book on how to do what I'm doing. And I would say the other piece of advice to anyone pursuing their venture is to be persistent. Don't give up anytime, whenever you hit a roadblock, because the rewards are very, very high once you accomplish and overcome a lot of the challenges that accompany being a farmer and a small farmer. So stay persistent and follow your passion. Those would be my words of advice.
All right. Okay. Yep. So the most rewarding thing that I've seen in the journey here was, one, is that I didn't have to rely on someone to give me anything. I was able to create it myself, just like so many others are able to do. And I think that at this point that a person should look inside of themselves and see what gifts they've been given. We've all been given gifts, but unfortunately, a lot of people are waiting on someone to either give it to them or something to just kind of fall out the sky. And it's like, if you look inside yourself, it's right there. So the most rewarding thing was to realize I didn't have to wait on anyone. I could actually create it myself. And to see others do that, that's what, brings me, happiness to see that, hey, they were able to look inside of themselves to create what it is they felt like they should do while they're here on the planet. So, and that's my answer. Thank you.
Go ahead, Ed.
I guess as a survivor of a violent crime, my wife and I were nearly murdered. We've both witnessed the kind of the worst and hatred of mankind, but we've also seen the best and most compassionate sides of mankind too. And I opened my farm shop door because it's getting a little hot anyway, but I wanted to grow up here and I wanted to work here. I wanted to raise my family here. And I wanted to see my grandkids grow up here. I've got my first grandchild coming in October, and pretty pumped about that. And I wanted to live my life working with people who lived here and appreciated the same thing and same values. I've had off-farm jobs, and I have sold myself to work in a cubicle for a time or two, which just slowly caused me to die inside. But this is kind of a calling for me, to cultivate the soil and cultivate people when I have a chance. And that's come at a great price. I'm sure there's other jobs that were easier that I could have had, but this was on my heart. This is what I wanted to do. And the only reason I'm not a billionaire is because I chose not to do the things that it takes to be a billionaire. But I was willing to do the things it took to be a farmer. And that's an expensive choice, and I don't mean just economically, but I think for me the benefits definitely outweigh the costs. So that's my little talk.
Sarah?
Yeah, I totally agree with Ed. I mean, the opportunity to work in agriculture and to literally put your feet on the ground and grow things, watch the beauty of life being created, and watching the cycle of nature. It's just so incredibly healing and empowering and grounding. I think agriculture is so unique and so special in being able to help people connect physically and spiritually, emotionally. I personally, when I am on my farm, I just feel peace and accomplishment. And when I get super stressed and I'm off farm or anything like that, when I see a picture of the farm or my animals or something like that, I can feel it literally change my body. And that's a powerful thing. But beyond just what the farm can provide, I think the feeling of success and knowing that you're doing something that makes a difference, knowing that you've built something is just incredible. And finally, I mean, the community that I've had the opportunity to meet and really surround and helped build me up has been phenomenal. And I can't imagine my life without that. I agree with Ed. You may not make the most money, and you may go to bed dog tired and your feet hurt, and you wake up and it's worth it. So it's just incredible. I think the benefits can outweigh, any of the challenges. So if you work hard, it's an amazing, amazing life. So.
Okay. Thank you all. That's our 3 questions. I'm not about to try to say any more. I don't think anybody could say it any better than these 4 have. At this point, I'm going to pass it back over to Emily. And in the meantime, if anybody has questions for the panelists, go ahead and stick them in the chat box. But Emily has some things to finish up here, and thank you all for participating and attending.
It helps if I unmute, guys, to talk to you. Thank you again for joining us today. Please follow the link in the chat box to answer evaluation questions about today's session. A recording of this session, along with the slides, will be archived on the National AgrAbility website, and you can use the same Zoom link that you used today for all of our upcoming Tuesday sessions. Next week's session is adaptive farming with the New Mexico AgrAbility Apprenticeship Program at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. If you have any questions, you can contact Tess right there at her email address. Let's see, are there any questions in the poll that are popping up? Just very, very inspiring. Thank you for your great stories. Thank you to everyone. And I think JoBeth, I don't have the link, JoBeth, so you gotta upload that if you're still around.
I can do that. One moment, please.
Thank you. There, it looks like Paul just uploaded the link. So you guys can go ahead and use that to enter for the evaluation process. So please click on that link and go ahead and do that. Are there any other questions? Keep them coming if you have them. Everyone did such a good job today. I learned a lot. Okay, well, thank you again, everyone, for joining us, and make sure you get your surveys turned in. And if you have any questions, you can reach back out to the national team. Enjoy the beautiful day.
All right. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you all.